So it becomes a very important asset protection tool. Most of you don't know that in the last few months I have prepared and is now publishing a set called the LLC Wizard, and I go through LLCs for 6 hours for you. Yeah, you can set it up in your state. I teach you how to do it. You can do it yourself. I teach you how to do the articles of organization in the state. I teach you how to do the operating agreement. The operating agreement has to have language in it which beefs up the charging order protection. If it's a wimpy set of operating agreement documents, then the guy gets a charging order. In many cases, he can just walk in and get the assets. But if you write the charging, or if you write the charging order, if you write the operating agreement properly, I can get so that life's pretty miserable for this guy who gets the charging order. In fact, we can shift taxes to him and not shift income to him. That is true under some circumstances, although not all. There again, it depends upon how you write the operating agreement. You've got to issue the membership interest. You've got to have the log. You've got to make sure you don't commingle the money. You've got to make sure you do all this. So I go through all of this in the LLC Wizard. Then I teach you how to get the tax benefits. LLCs have neat tax benefits. They have benefits that other entities do not have, even the corporation. But the neat thing about the LLC is you can choose to have it taxed as a corporation or a limited partnership or a sole proprietorship or however you want it to be taxed. The taxation of it has nothing to do with the legal structure of it. It just, all you're doing is saying, Mr. IRS, look at it this way. When I get into court, I don't care how it's taxed. It's an LLC. So the taxation has nothing to do with the legal aspects of it. So I go through the LLCs for you in great detail. Who owns your LLC or your corporation or your limited liability partnership or whatever it is? Well, your trust is going to own it because this stock certificate or this membership interest certificate in the LLC is one of your assets. To transfer ownership of your LLC, you have to sign some papers, don't you? If you have to sign papers and you're dead, we have to probate it. If you issue the stock in the name of your trust, you die. The owner of the stock didn't die. The manager of the trust died, and we get a new manager, successor trustee. And that person has the right to sell the asset, to sign the stock certificate, do whatever they have to do. So we're okay on that. We can go over the hour mark, can't we, boys? Yeah, we're going to go over 4 or 5 minutes here. We'll be through in 2 seconds. But we're going to if you've already issued the stock certificates or issued the membership interests, you turn your old certificate back in and you cancel it, and then you reissue a new certificate in the name of your trust, the John Doe as trustee for the Ugly Dog Trust, whatever you want to call your trust. So you'll reissue that, you'll change the log, you enter these certificates into a log, and now your trust owns the stock in your company. That doesn't give you any more asset protection. It just means we don't have to probate it when you die. Moving property into a company, that shouldn't be moving entities. It should be moving property into a company. We're going to move property into an LLC or a corporation or a limited partnership. When you put money into your corporation, when you set it up, or your LLC, you need to get stock back. If I give IBM $100 in stock, I want a $100 stock certificate back from them, don't I? That's called a 351 exchange. You've heard of a 1031. This is a 351. We are giving property. That can be property. If you've got an LLC and you're transferring one of your rental units into it, then you make out the deed in the name of the LLC, and you sign it as the guy who used to own it. Now the LLC owns it. But you need to make certain that the LLC gives you stock membership interests back exchange. If you do that, it's not a taxable exchange. You gave money, you got property back of equal value. When I give IBM the $100, they don't have to report it as income. When I get the $100 certificate, stock certificate back from IBM, I don't have to report it as income. We just swap assets. So you need to make sure that you actually swap assets. If you have issued stock and you put more property in, you have to issue more stock so that you have this 351 exchange. If you're not doing that, that's one of the things that they're going to look at when they attack your company, and they're going to say, well, he put property in. This is just him. It's his alter ego. He didn't care enough. He didn't care whether he got stock certificate back in exchange for putting the property in or not. I mean, it's him. If I give IBM $100, I want my $100 stock certificate. It's not me. That's IBM. You've got to think the same way with your little company. You have to do a reasonable value. If the value has been, if you put $1,000 in to start your company and you got 1,000 shares back, if I put a $300,000 piece of property in, I'd better be getting a fair number of shares back. So you have to do this. Technically, you should file a 351 form with the IRS, and no accountant has ever done that for you, and they never will. And the reason is there is not a 351 form at the IRS. The IRS says just write us a letter. Well, yeah, like I'm going to write the IRS a letter? But if you're going into bankruptcy and trying to protect assets from the bankruptcy, then you'd better be doing that. Let's look at a foreclosure. And I go through this a lot in the LLC Wizard. Let's say I've got two pieces of property, one that's fat and juicy and really producing, and one that's in Florida and 60 miles upside down, underwater. I'm going to let the Florida property go. I'm going to get a foreclosure. The bank's going to come against me for a deficiency. How can I protect the fat, juicy piece of property? Well, if I put it into a corporation, the bank's just going to say, okay, give me your corporate stock, and they now have the piece of property, remember? If I put it into a limited liability company with a couple of members, my kids, now you're going to have to play some games with taxes on here because we got to get membership interest to the kids, and we're going to have to, we're going to have to play some games, and I go through that in the LLC Wizard. But if I get the nice, fat, juicy piece of property into an LLC, then when the bank comes against me for the deficiency in the Florida property, they have to get a charging order against that fat piece of property in the LLC. Can you see what I've just done? I've just protected a piece of property from another piece of property. Now, if you're doing this last minute, the courts are not going to be happy with you. And my son-in-law is a litigator, and he's here in the office. By the way, he's really good. And he's going to say, hey, look, you're playing these games. I'm going to get the court to give me some club to hit you with. I may have to get a deficiency or a charging order, but I'm going to get you somehow. And the court and the judge, he's going to figure out how he can. And so there's what's called law, and there's what's called equity. If you've done this way in advance, you're probably safe. So when you do it, makes a big difference. Do it up front, do it fast. Do it as soon as you can. Do you have different LLCs for each piece of property? You can. Ideally, you do. But the fact of the matter is you're going to have to manage each one of those LLCs, file a tax return, do everything else. Now, I'll give it to you. There are about 8 states that you can do sell LLCs in or series LLCs in, and we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to assume that you set up a different LLC for each piece of property. You got to file the tax returns. You got to pay the state fees. If you're in California, that's $800 a year. I mean, you go broke. So don't get too far into this stuff. This isn't really the layering that I was talking about, but it is complicating your life substantially. And the lawyers love to do it because they're going to charge you a separate fee for each one of the LLCs that they set up, or you use the LLC wizard and then you just do as many as you want. But you got to think, am I in over my head? My estimation is an individual can only manage 2 or 3, 4 max pieces of company entities. So let's put all of Section 8, the lowball properties, in one LLC. Let's put the high-end residentials in another LLC. Let's put the strip mall, the commercial, into its own LLC. My rule of thumb is 3 or 4 properties and maybe $1 million worth of value in an LLC. So, you know, it's a judgment call. But the LLCs make excellent liability protection shields. They're better than the corporations in many respects. Now, I have a corporation. I still run a corporation. Don't slice your wrists and say, oh, well, it's lost because I got a corporation. But next time you set up a company, look really hard at the LLC. That says it's the end of our slideshow. So I'm grateful you've been with me. Everybody stayed with us. It even says you've been pretty attentive. That's amazing. I hope you've learned something. I hope I've answered some questions. I'm going to try and do this every so often, and I'll give you another email that says when we're doing it. I am going to be more proactive with the webinars and stuff. I'm going to have Robin Thompson on one of these days and quiz her and let her talk to you because she knows the real estate. I mean, I've got friends who know the short sales and all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to have more of the webinars, and I'm not going to barrage you with an email every day. If you're not getting the newsletter and you want it, or you need the LLC package, or you don't have the asset protection package, the Accumulation Preservation Wealth Set, or you want the book, Protecting Your Financial Future, give the office a call. Tomorrow morning, we'll close now, but the number there is 801-802-9020. 801-802-9020. And if I haven't answered your questions, you're one of my students, you're using the Accumulation Preservation Wealth. That's what it means when you're a student. Then give me a call, and if I'm not in, they'll make an appointment, and we can sit down and make sure you get your question answered. Appreciate you being with me, and we will talk to you later. End of webinar. Good night. Thanks.